Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm so excited to introduce you to our guests. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. It's not supposed to be easy. Anyone who finds it easy is stupid. Charlie Munger. Our guests today are awesome and smart and friends of the Culture Matters podcast for a long time, early supporters of me when mostly it was just loneliness, sadness, and people not believing in culture matters. They were there believing and supporting, and with good right, because I think we're going on almost 10 years of entrepreneurship and taking the risks and building something, not only alone, but together. Our guests have been on the show before, episode 193, I think, Real Estate Mission. Yeah, Real Estate Mission 193. If you haven't heard that episode, get over there after this episode. If you have any interest in building something from scratch, investing in real estate, understanding management of real estate, investing in funds of real estate, asking the questions of what not to do, you got to follow Jake and Leanna, who are back again to teach us about real estate and business. First, I love your thoughts on that quote, especially from you, Leanna. You're always cut right to the chase. Thanks for
Generally,
coming back.
yes. Thank you for having us back. It's definitely not easy. And if you think it's easy, you are stupid. It's true. I mean, you just don't get rich overnight. You just don't wish things into the world and they're going to show up. You have to put in the work and the work again, time after time, and then you start to see the results of it.
Have you been talking to my wife?
Maybe. Little do you know.
Like, I feel like she already got home or a couple hours. But what about you, Jake?
Well, I remember about 2018, somebody reached out to me and was like, what you do is easy. It's all over HGTV. You don't do anything special. Anybody can do it. And me back then, I tended to blast them. Um, but, realistically it's not easy whatsoever. Yeah, the glorified TV shows, which we've been a part of, First Time Flippers, Quick Flip, Slow Drip, on DIY Network. It's all sunshine and rainbows on screen, but in the real deal, it's life punches you in the throat, and you have to withstand that, get back up, and keep going. And you evolve over the years into a full-on machine of a real estate business. But you go through trials and tribulations in the beginning you have to learn from and grow from.
Hmm. What are some of the um what's the current state of affairs right now in real estate, like deal flow, opportunity flow? What are you seeing?
So
Because I
from
have a lot of different real estate people on, like real estate agents, mortgage originators, different the other, title. We have next week a few people in that, insurance. What are you seeing out there?
for my opinion is for people that are dialed in and have systems and processes and a awesome network, you're winning. um, for people that are just getting started or haven't built the network of referrals and partners for deal flow, you're the ones that are struggling right now. We're doing on average of 5 deals to 10 deals a month that we're buying. Most people are not even doing that in a year right now because of the current inventory, or they're sitting on the sidelines thinking it's too much of a war zone to play ball in the real estate industry right now. They're waiting for rates drop, or they think the market's going to crash, and they're on the sidelines trying to rub their crystal ball, figuring out what the perfect time is. And the perfect time was 30 years ago to invest in real estate. The best time now is today.
What process flow do you use to keep it all together? Like, where do you even start with that?
Well, that is,
Like, do you
can be
meditate?
tricky. No, no,
Okay.
I don't. It hasn't really worked out
We're
for
not
me.
meditation people.
No, just you just get up and you do what you got to do. Pretty much. So he handles most of the deals coming in. He's working with anybody who has a deal for him. He sets all that up. He gets it to the closing with whomever he needs to do that with. And then equally, we go through the construction side of it. So we'll each help in managing that, making sure jobs are flowing, making sure they're on budget. And then Jake jumps in again, and then he gets it to the refinance. So if we have a partner on that, partner would get paid off. We have the property to ourselves. We own 100%. And then that's where I kick in full time, is getting it leased up, managing the leases, managing any maintenance request, making sure the crews are getting there to fix the maintenance request, because we want our houses to stay very nice, and making sure the rents come in. If they don't come in, then I proceed for evictions or whatnot. So that's all my realm. Keeping it together is a lot of spreadsheets, a lot of good systems, and just
Wow.
every day you got to check. And I don't mind self-managing. I find it fulfilling. I like dealing with our residents. I do enjoy that. I do like hearing the feedback. Now, when you build a brand new, well, not build, when we renovate and do everything brand new in the house, and then within a week later, when somebody moves in and something like a door falls off or the toilet's now leaking through the ceiling, that can get a little frustrating since we have a brand new house. But
Wow.
things happen, and we just keep it moving. We get it fixed, and we keep turning and burning.
How would you advise people of conflict resolution? Like those that there's a lot of people that have come through the show, like our buddy that was introducing Jake the other day, doctor, who has some rental properties. They may not know how to interact with a tenant as high degree of expertise as you. In fact, I'm not going to speak for them, but I'm just thinking if somebody in that position, they work 80 hours a week, maybe they, you know, don't even know how to reach out to that tenant if something is not going right or if they're not paying. What would be your advice? Maybe they're even putting it off, like they're procrastinating. Like how do you handle conflict with the tenants so you can get to what your goal is?
Yeah. I just always ask them from the day they move in and then onward, just open communication. Because I would want to be treated the same way. If I was renting a house and something was wrong, I would want to make sure I communicate with that landlord or the owner of the property. So I make sure to them if there's anything wrong, or just something simple. If they're behind on rent, a courtesy text, hey, just to let you know, you're past behind on rent, what's going on? If they give me a valid reason, I'll waive a late fee. Like, we're human beings. I'm not trying to be the worst landlord out there. I want to be the best landlord out there. I want to be the person that people know they can come to. They're going to get a great product. They're going to get somebody who responds if there's a problem, and they have great communication. Now, business is still business. I still need you to pay. I still need you to maintain the house properly. But I think just being an overall good human with good communication is an easy way to, I guess, landlord. If somebody is out there, just be open with your tenants, be communicative with them. And now most of our stuff is just simply online through text or email. There's not really phone calls. I don't have time for phone calls, and it's not being rude. I just have other things to do. And if you message me, it's documented, and then we can go from there. So it's just good communication, and just knowing how to handle certain situations.
Was it scary in the beginning?
Not really. No, I wouldn't say scary. And
What would you
I found it always to be not really a job. So it's not something that I ever didn't dislike. Like, when I do get a request, it's fulfilling to me because now I have a task to make sure that's fulfilled. Or when I go and check the rent ledger, XYZ paid, but A, B, and C maybe didn't. So, hey, A, B, and C, you're going to get a letter, and those tasks are off my to-do.
Do you think people that listen to this that it desire to invest in real estate on their own and not partner with companies like yourself, people like yourself, their expectation versus reality is different?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Definitely. I think they, even with, like I said, all of our houses are brand new. It's brand new plumbing, electric. I'm sure Jake has said this before. Everything is brand new inside. So we help limit any type of maintenance requests, but they still happen. So even with our brand new properties, things come in. So it's not just you set it and forget it. You sign the lease, they pay their deposits and move-in costs, and then you don't hear from them again. I do have some residents that are like that. I barely hear from some of them, but then others need some attention or what have you. So to think you are just going to rent these properties and never hear from anybody, that's crazy. You're going to hear. I would want to hear from them because, yeah, I don't know. It's like our dogs. Like when they stop playing together, when it gets quiet, I feel like something's wrong. So when it's too
That
quiet for
makes
too
sense.
long, it's like, hey, is everything good? Are you okay? But it is not all sunshines and rainbows. And that doesn't bother me, but people I think get the wrong mentality when they go into rentals, thinking, okay, the person's just going to go in there, be fine. I don't have to deal with it. And when they do get that call or text, they get frustrated because now they're bothering you. Well, you signed up for that. If you don't want to be bothered, then hire it out. But I don't like property management companies because they're not going to handle it the way I handle it. I'm not saying they're bad. They just don't have the care, the time frame that I'm going to get to them properties in.
Yeah, what are some of the red flags or let's say, because people that maybe they're building a relationship newly with you as listeners, they're not yet involved in funds. Maybe they're early involved in their career where they own a couple properties and they're thinking about trying to have a property management company. What questions should they be asking to try to get a good management company? Maybe not as high level as you are because you have, right? But
I would hope they would ask for all their fees, all the breakdowns of their fees. If they have a property manager, just say managing 3 of their rentals, I think it's like 8 to 10% of the rents. If they have just say a plumbing maintenance request, how much is the plumber to go out? How much is the material? There's been times where we've had, like I said, we used a property management company when we first got started, and there was a couple things that we weren't made aware of before the maintenance request happened. And the said maintenance request happened, and it was about 4 months of our cash flow gone on one maintenance request.
let me
So
get that
you're not
straight.
expecting that. Yeah.
The flow of, so there's revenue and then there's expenses and there's debt.
Mhm.
And there'd be like savings as a consequence of that, right? Pre-tax. And so based on that, this management company is in a sense like they're managing that business. If that business is that one property, and if they overspend, that then overspend potentially, that could be a bit. I shouldn't curse. That could be a pain in the butt. Like is that? Am I visualizing it properly? Like there's an income and there's an outflow, and the management company is doing the best, is trying to manage to those problems, but if they overspend, it's not their money.
Right.
Correct.
I'm trying to make sure I understand this, like
Yeah.
a lay person listening to this. So
Mhm.
it's creating another layer of human capital.
Right. And the property management's model is, well, one, they want to get your house leased up as fast as possible, or apartments, whatever it may be, because that's how they make money. Usually, I'd probably say 98% of property management companies take the first month's rent from you and as a fee, and then they charge 8 to 10% per month. And then if there's any maintenance requests, they add usually 15% on top of whatever it costs as a fee for getting you those services. So the average property cash flows, call it $300 a month. Okay. Over 1 year, that's $3,600. Well, the property management company, the median rent is $1,500 a month. So already right out the gate, the property management company is taking, half of your cash flow up front, day one for the year. Then they're taking another $150 every single month. So if you add those two together, you don't cash flow.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then if you have maintenance requests, which you're going to have, because the majority of people don't buy properties like we do and fully gut them and redo everything. We still have maintenance requests, but they're very minute. These people have depreciated properties where the plumbing's still made, from 1950, the wiring's still from 1950, the roof's 20 years old, there's no new drywall, it may be plaster, so there's cracking involved, the floors are old. And so they have all these other things going on that can be disqualified by doing what we do, and that's the Burr model. But we've seen that at an early stage of, wow, hiring a property manager doesn't really work that well. And also, there's just not enough money in it for them to care about your one property. Just think about the maintenance, the administrative cost every single month to manage one of your properties when they're only getting paid, say, $150 a month. There's just not enough human capital to be able to put all the care into your property in one given month. So we vertically integrated really early on. How can we build an awesome property management company for ourselves so that way we keep all that money in our pocket? 10% on the rents every single month, plus, first month's rent on every single property we have. So say we have 100 properties, right? And, the median rent across America is $1,500. Well, that's $150,000 year one that we saved keeping it in-house, plus 10% a month. So it's like you're adding a bunch of revenue stream, more revenue to your bottom line by keeping it all in-house. And, when you're all dialed in, she spends probably 2 to 4 hours a week managing the portfolio.
Now, what is Burr for people that don't know?
It is buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And the model of that is that we want to buy properties that are distressed properties, undervalued, and then buy them, rehab them, make them all brand new mechanicals, everything like that. So we minimize maintenance costs over the long term. Then go to a direct lender or a bank, refinance that property at 75% to 80% loan to value, pull out all of our money and have zero money in the deal. So technically it's an infinite return. Then we can use that capital and buy another property, stacking our chips, stacking our monthly cash flow over time.
How is that? How is that model? How is that evolving with the times?
As in the real estate market right now?
As in the like cost of capital change, cost of capital is, doubled, tripled, quadrupled.
When looking at a deal, the cost of capital isn't necessarily always the deal breaker. It's usually the availability of capital. So when we go into these deals, we're buying them all in. So say we're buying a property for 30 to 40 cents on the dollar. After rehab and renovation, it brings the cost of the whole property up to 55 cents to 65 cents on the dollar. So it still leaves, 35 to 45 percent equity on that deal. So we have that much equity to play around with, meaning cost of capital, carrying costs, things of that nature. So when you think about cost of capital, whether the cost of capital is a few basis points up or down, it doesn't really add much to the cost of the project. It's more about, can I do more deals? And is that capital available? If the capital is available, you're not going to pay 30% on your money. That's just crazy. You're not going to pay 20% on your money. That's just nuts. You're going to pay a reasonable return on the capital. However, if it's like I said, if it's a few basis points up or down, you factor that into the deal prior to doing the deal, so it's a cost. It's a fixed cost, no matter what.
What do you think, Leanna?
That, that's all Jake's department. I just know I'll give him a no if I think the property is just no.
Based on location,
Yuck.
pretty
Yeah,
much.
location, no, no, no. But other than that, that he deals with all the capital. If he says it's a go, it hits the green lights that he needs it to hit, then we go forward.
Um, hmm. What's hardest about real estate investing?
Well,
Capital
so
availability.
there's three components. There's capital, there's deal flow, and there's contractors. They're like the big three. I mean, if you're doing rentals, you have property management, right? That's another one.
That's qualified residents.
Well, tenants,
Yeah.
but we live in a rental America, so everybody's a tenant at the end of the day. It's just qualifying those tenants to be the right resident for your property. So like capital, deals, and contractors. Everybody says, find good deals and the money will follow. I find that bullshit. I don't think, just because you have a good deal doesn't mean you're going to get the money. It just doesn't happen. And then the other fact of is you can have all the money in the world and as many deals as you have, but if you don't have contractors to get those deals done, it's worthless. If you have deals and you don't have money, well, then those deals are worthless. So you kind of need all three, that three trifecta, to be able to do anything. And from what I've heard in the marketplace right now, deals and contractors are the hardest thing right now.
Why?
Well, one, we're in a time in real estate where there's not a lot of deals on the market. That can be due to people don't want to move because housing is so at such a high price, the highest it's ever been. Rates are at an all-time high, the highest they've been in, say 20 years. So people aren't moving because they can't afford to rebuy, or rent is through the roof. So they can't afford to rent now. So they're forced to stay in their distressed properties. Contractors, people just don't know how to qualify contractors or find the right ones. And that's a little bit of luck and sourcing contractors. It goes hand in hand of luck, finding the right ones and being able to build a long-term relationship with them, and then also sourcing the correct ones, doing your due diligence on them to make sure they're not the first three letters of a contractor and they're not a con. Because a lot of contractors out there are cons, and they'll take your money or do shit work, and play you as a fool. That's just the name of the game.
Meaning like how it becomes too expensive too quickly?
As for contractors,
Yeah, managing contractor, like the cost of materials, the efficiency to execute or like get
so
things done.
there's two different types of contractors. There is your homeowner type contractor, and then there's an investor type contractor. They will do the same work. Say, for instance, you have homeowner contractor and investor contractor. They're both installing the same kitchen, right? Your soft close, white shaker cabinets that are solid wood, quartz countertops, marble backsplash, stainless steel appliances, nice gold fixtures for handles. That kitchen in for a homeowner contractor, they're going to come in and charge you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 for that kitchen. However, the cost of materials on that kitchen are, call it $5,000. Okay, so their profit margins are huge. Now, where the investor contractor is charging you, all in with materials, 6 to 10 grand to do that same kitchen. It's just they're the same product, different sources of labor, different aspects. So like with investors, they know there's really nothing going to change. Most investors that are doing lots of scale of real estate, they're sticking to a couple different models of renovations they do. So every time they do a renovation job, it's literally the same thing. It's cookie cutter going to the next one. It's about scaling and it's about doing multiple. So where with homeowners, they're having change orders all the time. The homeowner is switching products up left and right. And also, homeowner contractors usually take months on end to finish a home renovation. Whereas investor contractors, we need to be in and out of deals in, call it a month, 2 months to be able to put that property back on the market to either rent, or sell the property. So there's multiple different things between regular contractors that, are working for a homeowner versus, real estate investors.
So we find a property that needs work. We raise a note to acquire it through investors. We buy it with that note, not cash, but in full. We bought, and we get a line of credit, and we fix it, make it better.
Yeah, so let's take you through the journey of that whole process. So we find it, we fund it, we fix it, we sell it, or refinance. So finding the deal is we're just looking for, say, just to make it simple, we find a property we want to buy, right? That property is distressed. We're buying it for 30 cents on the dollar, 40 cents on the dollar. We take that property, we put together a prospectus. And what I mean by that is like a little, investor about this property, right? We're showing pictures of the property, our brief description of the scope of work that we're doing to the property to achieve that future value that we see, the after repair value, ARV. And then, we present that to investors, and the investors see the returns they'll get over that specific time frame. We go to a settlement company, they do the transaction, they fill out a mortgage, a promissory note, a confession of judgment, a guarantee and suretyship, and a declaration of non-owner occupant. These are all security documents that keep the investor's investment safe and secured, and they're recorded at the local county courthouse. So that way, it's backed by real tangible assets, real estate. That property can't be resold or refinanced without paying off that existing debt on the property. Now, say for instance, ourselves were never to pay that investor, or, run out of Dodge and go to the Cayman Islands, that investor then can take that confession of judgment, the mortgage, the promissory note, the assignment of rents, confession of judgment, all that stuff, go to the courthouse and get that property deeded over to them. And then, they can sell that property to recoup their initial investment, or they can take that property and take it to the end, fix that property up, and make the big bucks as well.
I'm investing into the property with an investor's money secured by the property, and I'm fixing it with, is that same type of debt?
Yeah.
Or
So that same investor,
yeah.
That same investor is funding the purchase of the property and the renovation of the property. That way.
Okay, this is great. So with that purchase and with that refurbishment comes a return to the investor, which would make it worthwhile. And the investment is also secured by something tangible, which outside of the psychological value there's a tangible value there of potentially taking control of it at some point if some event were to occur.
Yep.
So it's secured by the real estate. The timeline of but the benefit is a fixed return based on the amount invested, which
Correct.
has a and the timeline would is shorter than maybe something if we bought Apple or something, the guy Howard that sold Apple shares early for $800. Today it's worth 150 billion. He would have just had to wait 40 years or whatever, but he sold early. So the benefit though is the 800, okay, or not the money backed by the real estate. Now,
Exactly.
but on the other side of it, or on the other side of it, the organization that's found the value, which is this uh, property that could be worth more in the future, that's currently the opportunity. The opportunity is that today it's cheaper now because it could be worth more. You get it, right? You got the opportunity. Other people would have liked the opportunity. They didn't find it, or they couldn't get the capital, or they don't have the intellectual property to make it better in a way that makes sense, like the maths. Okay. So now it's refurbished. And now we're going to go to make sure the investor that's secured by the real estate, the non-institutional one, like Jay, gets the fixed return back. The organization that found the property that makes it valuable, refurbishes it, is going to partner with Stewart, who's an institution. Like he works for the institution, like XYZ Bank. Stewart is interested in a fixed return that's over a longer period of time. Stewart is like, I will refinance this. I will give you 80% on the value. So I'm just trying to make it simple. So we buy it for 30K with Bob, who gets 10% secured, but we put 30K in. So we're in for 60. Now it's worth 100. And Stewart says, I'll give you 80. Stewart. So 60, 80. The spread is 20. What's his name gets, well, no, the spread's 20. The gross spread is 20K. Bob gets the 60 back plus 66K. So now we have 14K spread on the 80 LTV. Now we're partnered with Stewart. We'll call him Stu. So so there are costs to manage this business. Like what? Like what are the costs of managing a business of real estate like this? Our air, like I just had to pay this guy, the air went off or whatever. He came, this guy, oh my God. Some guy came the other day, tried to sell me a garage door. It was a whole thing. Like he said, oh, let me show you this. And and before you know, I said, yeah, no problem. Show me. He takes the garage apart, then tries to sell me a $5,000 thing. And I'm like, no, I didn't need you to do that. Just put the remote. Just put the remote on the garage door. Like I needed a new code. And he's like, oh, I gotta take it apart. I mean, you had me do all this. I swear to God, this happened.
Oh,
He was hoping he'd guilt me into selling me a five. That what? Because I have a Rolex. I'm gonna just pay $5,000 for something I don't need. He like tried to hustle me so bad. I was like, no, just put the thing back on the garage. All I wanted was a code, right? So there's expenses that come with a house. It was way cheaper than what he was trying to get me for. It was a couple $100 to fix the code. I almost got hustled into a $5,000 spring for a garage door because I had a Rolex on. I bet that's why he was trying to hustle me. So my question is, like, what are some of the whoever's listening to this? I apologize. I'm trying to understand. Like, I'm the lay person trying to understand the real estate investment. Right? There are costs that come with managing the business. Now that we're in business with Stewart, Bob got back his money. I just made up, percentage in a fast period of time. Felt good about it because it was backed by real estate. It was a fixed instrument. So if it took 6 months and he got 10%, feels like 20 because a year, 6 months. There's a spread. Now we're in business with Stewart, but we have to manage the company. This is a company, a little, right? It could be one house or it could be a giant apartment. So what are the costs? Like
Yeah. So
plumbing,
now
maintenance.
now that we're in business with Stewart, which would be, a traditional bank or a hedge fund that holds.
Stu, we'll call him Stu.
Well, Stu. Now that we're in business with Stu, who's holding the debt on the property for the next 30 years, if we choose to keep it that long and not refinance again with Stu's brother, our continuous fixed cost are taxes, insurance, the mortgage, the P&I, principal and interest to Stu, and then any ongoing maintenance. And that's a variable cost. You're never going to know your true maintenance on a property. But, for someone like ourselves, being that we fully got properties and renovate them and put all new mechanicals, new roof, windows, plumbing, electric, everything brand new, our maintenance costs are a lot lower. Our anticipated percentages on maintenance costs is a lot lower than someone that just buys a property and rents it out right away without doing any improvements. So, usually, people estimate, 5 to 8% on maintenance costs, and that's on top of the rent. So if the rent's $1,000, 8% on that's $80 a month. So, make sure you put that away.
I'm yelling all of a sudden. Taxes, insurance, maintenance. These are variable.
Yep. So, well, PITI
Taxes go
is
up.
principal, interest, taxes, insurance. They're fixed
Like
costs.
insurance in Florida, good luck.
Well, that's going up like 30% in the last year. So that's true.
Taxes, depending on where one is, going to go up. I haven't yet seen anywhere where they go down, but maybe that part of the reason we have to vote, right? Eat the rich. Yeah, eat the rich. So this is a fun episode. Ongoing maintenance varies depending on, are we a slumlord? Are we somewhere between a slumlord and what's the inverse of that?
Pretty much a slumlord and new construction.
A good lord.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, or the Oedipal mother, the Oedipal, the overbearing mother, right? The Social Security, like, giving too much, try to, if there's somewhere on a spectrum, right? Okay. So got it. So we're in business with Stu. Our role is to make sure. Oh, and then there's the relationship that the tenants have with are they going to pay the responsibility of the tenant as an individual, which has a relationship with the management company at some degree, because but also with other things that are, who knows, right? Like people lose jobs and they have to figure out how to not be dregs to society, it's just okay. So okay. So now from there, where do we go from there? We have it, we manage it. Then what?
Now
we sell it.
Mailbox money for life. Now it's living off our investments.
And
then stacking chips and redoing it over and over again.
So rents have to continue to go up to, or rents, the likelihood of rents going up is good, because that hedges us to taxes that go up, insurance that goes up, fixed interest is good because then we at least have it lowers our risk.
Right.
But if it's very high interest, it eats to our profits.
Which we can
Maintenance
always
is
refinance at a later date. So it's always marry the property, date the rate. So the rate can always go up or down in the future. And right now you're at a fixed rate. But however, say if rates go up, well, at least you have a good rate compared to what it is in the future. But if it goes down, we can refinance again and get, lower our payment.
what if it stays?
So then we just stay in the deal at that rate. We're married to the property. We can always divorce the property and sell it, but we can always change the rate if we choose to.
How often should we sell properties?
That's depending on the investors, the way they invest. Some people invest for appreciation, right, where they hold on to properties and they eventually sell them after the value has increased, and that's their form of return on their money. Where other people invest for cash flow, that monthly residual mailbox money that's pretty much on autopilot, that gives them, time freedom, financial freedom, location freedom, things of that nature.
Is depreciation a real cost?
So depreciation is not a real cost. I mean, it's real, right? Because the properties are always aging and the property is always getting wear and tear. Um, However, it's like a phantom loss. Just like appreciation, I think appreciation should never be equated for because nobody has a crystal ball and it's just like up in the air. We never know if the market's going to go up. We can take calculated risks, right? And
Well,
based
that's interesting because I
on
think
the
that creates
past.
an issue. That's a good point, but we can only borrow based on appreciation because the bank is not going to refi us unless there's appreciation, because then there's no margin to refi.
Well, the bank's always going to finance a deal if it has margin, right?
I'm talking about the old deals
Yeah,
we're holding on our books.
right. They're only going to refinance them if they appreciate it or if you made enough debt pay down to be able to have equity to
Well,
refinance.
yeah. The debt pay down, that's true. The question would become based on the profitability of if we look at each property as a business, some businesses lose money.
Right.
Like, and if we have a portfolio, a percentage are going to be losing money. Just like this happens all the time in business. Like somebody that buys a franchise, they end up owning five, and then what happens? The main one, if they're not, they is where all the money's coming from, and then the other four kind of lower the overall. But you see what I'm saying? Like if they have five versus having one, a percentage of any distribution, are not going to be profitable, but maybe our net return is profitable because we're diversified. That's like the economics behind diversification.
And that's why majority of real estate does not work for the average real estate investor. Um, that's a word that I wish would be taken away is, a real estate investor. Everybody's a real estate investor. You talk to Tom, Dick, and Harry. Oh, I'm a real estate investor. I own property. And it's like, well, how many properties do you have? Oh, two. No, you're a hobbyist. You don't run any real business because at the end of the day, you're probably negative margins.
I think you're right about that. I think you're right about that.
Because at a low scale, real estate, the rental business in itself for cash flow does not really work out because there's maintenance costs. You're always something's always bound to break and happen.
What do
So if
you
you're
think about the train of thought out there that a lot of people in the real estate community bought too high?
I think that anybody that bought just to buy, for instance,
Like because they were able to, because the Fed was pumping so much money. Like quantitative easing is basically backwards appreciation, like
yeah,
making money so cheap that the debt, if the debt is, I'll give you an example, like our house would have been half the mortgage if we bought it 4 years ago, 3 years ago. Our house, the mortgage would be half. So think about it, right? We made an intention not to buy into our borrowing capacity as a family.
I mean,
Because I like a very low DTI because I'm extremely paranoid. So like if we bought into the mortgage that we in theory could have because of the cost of capital, um, there would be a much bigger house. So
for sure. I mean, we're in the same boat to where, our current mortgage right now on our house would have bought like almost a $2 million home, but we're at like half that for the same price. If we would have bought this same house, call it 3, 4 years ago, shit, this house would be, half our mortgage, or we would be in a much bigger house.
yeah, so this think about this for a decade plus, we were able, this is not just real estate, this is business, just everything.
Life. This is cost of living.
Okay, so but when it comes to the cost of capital, the piece of cost, the debt piece of cost of capital, the debt, the cost of debt was so low comparatively that when I'm trying to get this out,
It makes deals less profitable. Is that what you're saying?
Less opportunity.
Less opportunity.
shittier deals appeared more profitable than they were because the debt was cheap. That's what I'm trying to articulate. So like let's say that like the business looks better than it is because the financing was so cheap. Yeah, that's what I'm trying to like.
When
The
debt was
whole swath of real estate of business is that if the debt is, if it costs less, the business may appear better than it is because the debt creates a margin
right.
based on. And why was the debt so cheap? Well, it was cheap because our government was buying lots of debt, and it stopped doing that. And now the debt has become more expensive. But meaning, like the government was making all of us richer than we were,
Right.
all of us. So, like, I think we're in the midst of a culture shock, like all of us. That's us, everyday people, all because yeah. So that's what are your thoughts? I'm trying to like flush or follow this string here. Is that the relationship with debt, even just leverage, like loan to value, all these things, that all has relationship with risk. Because and the reason is because I think, I mean, I'm not, I'm just it's a fleeting thought, but because human beings are complicated, right? Like this month we might pay our mortgage, and then next month we decide, you know what, we're going to invest into this podcast. It's the podcast is more important than the mortgage. Like humans are crazy. Because why? Because the podcast, yeah, we're going to sell it for $10 billion. We'll pay the mortgage back, right? Like we have time. So humans are, you don't know what we're going to do. So, hey, help me out here. I'm trying to
So
get somewhere, but yeah.
You could make
educate.
shiny shit look good and make it a deal when debt was super low. Now those same deals that people made, bigger institutional deals like bigger multifamily syndications, things of that nature, where they had variable debt, where it wasn't fixed, and now they're coming to a point where they have to refinance that debt at a double, if not triple, the rate that they had. Now those deals aren't profitable anymore, and they're underwater on those deals. So, a lot of operators are getting the shit kicked out of them, and their investor partners are also in the dumps with them because they didn't underwrite the deals appropriately. And they just thought that just because debt's cheap, we can buy everything. And they didn't, try to underwrite the deal on multiple different levels. And that's just unfortunate. That's why we use fixed debt. So we always know the cost of doing business. We don't ever use any variable debt because nobody has a crystal ball. We never know what debt's going to be. It could go up, it could go down, it could stay static. But if it goes up and we're in variable debt and we have to refinance in 3-5 years because it's not fixed debt, well, we're screwed. They call the note due, and that's either we have to pay it off in full within a given time frame, or we have to refinance again. And that's how people get screwed.
Where are the opportunities now?
So I really believe that the opportunities right now are in, like affordable housing. And, affordable housing gets a name because it's being thrown around right now. And truth of the matter is affordable housing is anything that's less than the median house rent in America. Now, affordable housing in a sense of like true like affordable housing before it got the buzzword is Section 8, HUD, VA, rapid housing, community action agencies that help unfortunate families get housing through subsidy. That is affordable housing. And, in the economy that we're in the world we live in, the gap between middle class, poor, and the rich keeps getting greater and greater and greater. The cost of living, the cost of owning a home, the cost of rent is becoming outreachable for middle class. And the poor 10 years ago are poverty now. The middle class is turning poor. So they're getting forced into these lower starter home areas, the lower income areas, because they can't afford to rent where they used to be able to rent, or they can't afford the home that they used to be able to afford. So they're getting pushed into these subsidies or these areas. And that's where we see a huge opportunity is in those programs. But being the person on top in those programs. For so many years, those programs were used by slumlords because they thought it was a guaranteed check and they can just provide any type of housing they wanted to. However, we've changed the mindset of that and said, hey, how about we bring luxury affordable housing to these lower income programs, the same housing they would get if they were in the mainline apartment buildings or something like that, the custom kitchens, the custom bathrooms, the high-end fixtures, everything like that, and put it into these programs and be the #1 product within that program. And in any downturn, any recession, any pullback in the marketplace, we're getting paid on the first no matter what. Where Susie Sally that works for JC Penney's or Boeing or these companies, they have a layoff, she gets cut from her job. Now she can't pay her landlord. Now the landlord still has to pay that mortgage, or if not, they lose the property. Where with us, we partner with the government, the VA, Section 8, HUD, these housing programs to where it's guaranteed rental income paid on the first every single month on clockwork, no matter what happens, no matter if, Russia bombs Ukraine or the election or, a bubble happens. We get our money no matter what.
Leanna?
Like you said, we get our money no matter what. It's a safer play. It's just a longevity approach that we're going for. We do fix and flips still, but that's not our play anymore in the real estate industry. We've turned to the BRRRR method, as Jake explained, by rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. We keep 100% of our properties. We manage 100% of our properties. So 100% of the profit goes to us to build and live the life that we want. So being able to have a guaranteed check on the first that is backed by the government is a huge thing, especially when you start getting to hundreds of rentals. It could be a very big issue. If hundreds of people get laid off, you have hundreds of mortgages to pay.
In closing, what do you want the audience to take away from this conversation?
Don't be scared of real estate. Don't be afraid to manage your own properties. Don't be just be just be a good human being. Don't be a slumlord, because if you want to do that, just please just get out. We don't like that at all. We buy too many properties, we hear too many horror stories. And no human should have to live in some of the situations that we've been told before. I just think that's ridiculous. But just it's a great gateway if you want to build a different life. Now, I'm not saying quit your job tomorrow, because like the beginning of this podcast, it's not easy. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of determination. It takes a team. Yes, could either Jake or I do it on our own? Of course. We both have the capabilities to do that, but I think it's best to find somebody you work together with and get it done. And Jake would like to say, are you saying our book?
Oh, well, Jay.
Our book? We have a
No
book.
sweat.
So, for people that want to get started in real estate that necessarily don't have the time, right? They work a full-time profession, or they just don't know how, don't have the resources. We wrote a book called No Sweat Real Estate Investing, High Returns, Low Risk, Zero Hassle, how to enjoy profits from owning rental property without the headaches of dealing with tenants, toilets, termites, and turnovers. So there is a hands-free way to get involved in real estate without actually having to own the real estate itself, through partnerships, through private lending, through JVs, which is joint ventures, and you reap the rewards and returns of real estate without having to have boots on the grounds or the day-to-day nuances of being a landlord or a project manager or a property manager. Or just learn the ropes of real estate in general, because it takes a while. So for people out there that want to get involved in real estate, but they don't want to actually do the work, but they want the returns of real estate, if you have somebody that you know that's in the real estate industry that's actually doing it, you can potentially partner up with them, become a lender, become a financial partner, so to do deals and reap the rewards.
You're listening to this episode of the Culture Matters podcast. Pay attention. Rewind. Listen to some of our esoteric banter. You're going to get a lot. Buy the book. Sweat all the way down to the library and pick up that bad boy. Follow Philly Fortune Talks. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast. Thanks, guys.